This is Brenden.
And today we'll be exploring the paranormal.
The paranormal, defined as ghosts or beings from another dimension, is one of the most controversial subjects across the entire spectrum of humanity. From videos and pictures to police records, numerous forms of proof have permeated to the public. When it comes to the paranormal, there are three types of people: believers, non-believers, and skeptics.
As two skeptics, we wanted to ensure that we were on the right side of the facts and chose to investigate a topic we both feel strongly about, but know very little about. Throughout this podcast, we will centralize our findings to better understand the validity behind this unknown and bring forth points from both sides to reach a fair conclusion.
Firstly, we must construct a foundation to base our research. We will be using Discovery News' basic four categories: personal experiences, orbs, ghost equipment results, and electronic voice phenomena. Personal experiences are pretty self-explanatory. They're recollections of what people literally saw or what their ancestors passed down. Most personal experiences have to do with possession of items, where a spirit takes possession of a doll, for example.
Next is orbs. Orbs are round or oval white shapes that appear in images. They are highly controversial, but definitely can be summed up as a major category for paranormal proof. There have been millions of pictures taken that have been determined to contain orbs, but few of these provide irrefutable evidence because orbs are very easy to add in, so they may not have occurred naturally.
Ghost equipment results include a variety of different gadgets, each measuring a different aspect believed to correlate to the paranormal. Audio recorders are used to record various sounds, such as scratching or an actual paranormal voice. Most famously, they are used to record people talking who are apparently possessed. This is a very reliable form of data. Video recorders are also used to document appearances or activities involving spirits, most famously as exorcisms. Infrared cameras are used to document heat changes in the environment. Unusual cold or hot spots, often appearing in the shape of a human, can show spirits. Thermometers can also be used to identify spirits. EMF meters are used to document electromagnetic field changes correlating specifically to poltergeists. Laser grids can be used to prove that a paranormal being is commonly in a room when left. Motion detectors also assist in this. And lastly, there is UV light, which can track hand and footprints of paranormal beings after activity, thus leading the investigators to find where the spirit resides. This is one of the most reliable forms of evidence besides video and audio recording.
The last of the four paranormal categories is EVP, which are sounds found on electronic recordings that were unintentionally recorded. For example, static on the radio that when played back is believed to be a voice, or when playing inaudible sounds backwards, hearing a secret message in an obsolete language. So for example, many people said that when you play Led Zeppelin records backwards, you can hear the devil speaking in Latin.
Ghost sightings have been around longer than science, according to Gale. They also have existed as stories or folklore in nearly every civilization since the beginning of time.
Most famously, the phenomenon of witchcraft, which occurred across the world from the 1300s to the 1700s. Specifically in the United States, witchcraft was a fiery debate resulting in the deaths of 20 people and 2 dogs. More than 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft, and nearly every one of those 200 was imprisoned due to suspicion of witchcraft.
The stories of these occurrences have been passed down from generation to generation, ending in books, movies, and even a feeling that witches still live in the woods of Salem today. This demonstrates how controversial the possibility of supernatural occurrences can be, and how historically significant paranormal activity has been.
Now that we have a little bit of a backstory behind the paranormal, we're going to further examine the historical narrative of ghosts. Hello, we are sitting here with one of Jackson's esteemed teachers, Mr. Michael. We're going to ask him some questions about his knowledge of ghosts. So, question number one right off the bat, do you believe in ghosts?
Not really.
You do not. So as a history teacher, do you have any historical stories about ghosts or rumors of ghosts, demons, anything like that?
I've been to D.C. quite a few times. There's the Ghost of Lincoln. I've been to Ford's Theater. I've been to the Stephen Decatur House. On a local basis, the Massillon Women's Club is allegedly haunted by the eldest daughter who lived and died there.
Right.
But as far as some encounter, no, never had that.
Okay, here's some brief background on Mr. Michael's examples that he brought up. The ghost of Lincoln reportedly haunts both the Ford Theater and the White House, where Lincoln spent the last 4 years of his life wrought over the stress of the Civil War. The first notable person to report a sighting of Lincoln's ghost was First Lady Grace Coolidge in 1929. She claimed she saw Lincoln staring out of the Oval Office window with a deep look of yearning on his face. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt's personal maid had a similar story. Most entertaining of all, Prime Minister of England Winston Churchill, a man who had an odd habit of roaming about naked, also ran into Lincoln's specter entertainingly while in the nude. We also found out that Lincoln had a strangely prescient dream. Shortly before his death, he dreamed of a crowd of people telling him of his untimely demise. Some presidents, such as Harry Truman, said that they were greatly comforted by the notion of the great emancipator's ghost haunting the hallways of the White House.
Next was the Decatur House. Stephen Decatur moved to D.C. in 1818 after the war ended. He was considered to be a presidential candidate until he served on the court-martial board of his friend, Commodore James Barron. This led to his friend dueling in Bladensburg, Maryland, taking place on March 14, 1820. He was mortally wounded and taken home so that he could die with his wife. His wife was so broken-hearted she moved away so that she could avoid the memories of him. A year later, on the eve of his death, his ghost was allegedly seen in a window, sadly overlooking the spot of the duel. Due to the large number of sightings of this ghost, the window was boarded up, but still, people kept reporting seeing the ghost. Later, sounds of weeping were heard, allegedly coming from the ghost of his wife. Today, residents of D.C. still report seeing his ghost looking out of the second-story window, or slipping out of the back door of his house with a black box under his arm. The same thing that happened right before the duel. Eventually, the second-story window was walled up again, but still, people claim to see and hear the voices of his wife and his ghost.
Finally, the Maslin Women's Club, built by acclaimed architect Charles F. Schweinfurth in 1892, has been the center of much paranormal attention locally. This landmark was used to support the war effort during World War I. The paranormal claims include apparitions, the appearance of a woman, cigar smoke that comes from out of nowhere, and moving statues. There have also been reports of feeling chills, and people that say they've been stroked or grappled around their neck and arms, so very creepy. And now back to the interview with Mr. Michael.
Do you think that humans have a capacity to confabulate ghost experiences?
If confabulate means make up them and present them in their mind, yeah, I think that if you have a traumatic experience, or if you are told that an area is somehow haunted or it has some weird background, I think that plays on your senses.
Here, Mr. Michael says something very important that we will touch on in the later section of our podcast. Do you think the media has any impact in people experiencing ghosts?
Well, it sells. Look at all the great horror movies out there. Everything from the slasher films and Poltergeist to the really smart horror films. So you have The Sixth Sense, things like that. So it sells. Without it, Halloween wouldn't be as interesting.
The evidence for the supernatural may not be as damning as it looks. According to Newsweek, humans have an innate pattern-seeking system. While this may give humans innumerable advantages, such as being able to detect when a bear might be hunting you, or knowing when it's going to rain again, when the seasons are going to change, it can also have disadvantages as misinterpreting patterns. This is why illusions exist, optical illusions. You see something that isn't there. So people may sincerely believe that a ghost visited them, when in fact it was just their pattern-seeking system creating something that wasn't real.
Several supposed supernatural events have also been proven to be hoaxes, such as Amityville, which decreases the veracity of the rest of the claims. Human affinity for fame can easily drive them to fabricate claims about their experiences. Others, driven by intense boredom, will begin to believe in the supernatural simply because they have nothing better to do.
Hollywood is also a huge factor. New horror movies are brought out every year and commonly say based on true events. These so-called true events can simply be a person existing, but also having a very biased approach to the true events by assuming that the paranormal exists. Both of these two examples show how Hollywood spins the truth, creating confusion about the facts of the paranormal.
Halloween is also a big factor. This holiday centers around the supernatural. Things like haunted houses and haunted hayrides increase the frequency that the supernatural is thought about. This means that someone who experiences something they can't explain will immediately accredit to the supernatural. not because it is the most likely cause, but simply because the supernatural has been forced into their minds.
So, in either case, the theme we really want to strike at is that the most important thing you can do is never take something at face value. Investigate it deeply, look into it, never be satisfied with simply a superficially plausible claim. Always look into something deeply and look for the deeper truth. And on that note, I leave you to draw your own conclusion about the supernatural.
This is Brenden and Mario signing off.
And just remember that even if the supernatural doesn't exist, each and every one of you is super. I love you.